Hello, thank you for joining me for another video, and it will continue on the topic of anxiety. So as usual for me, I take a subject, I dig into it really deep, and my intention for one article or one video on the topic ends up being, at this point now, three. Yeah, three. So let me just kind of review what we've already covered regarding the topic of anxiety, anxiety disorders, and health anxiety. Then I'll get into more detail of the specifics on health anxiety, because this is, I believe, going to become even more prevalent with all that's going on in the world and how we're being told to really focus on our bodily symptoms. And for some people, that can be pretty anxiety producing. So let's just catch up with what I've already gone through. And if you missed it or you want more details, make sure that you go ahead and check out the link to the article that accompanies this video, because it will have all of the references and resources that I discuss. So first of all, what I talked about is a broad definition of health anxiety. Now we'll go through that again in a minute. But I also explained why it's important to get the proper diagnosis for any mental health issue. This is because misdiagnoses can lead to overtreatment, it can lead to undertreatment, and it can lead to ineffective, inappropriate treatment. And this can cause more harm than good. In fact, it has been linked to misdiagnoses or overtreatment to some suicide. So we have to be very careful and know what we're dealing with. And specifically for anxiety, it means being aware that anxious brains have unique brain processing patterns. They also have different cognitive patterns and functional alterations in how the brain works. So it's important to distinguish anxiety disorders related to brain health from common symptoms of stress, or even just someone experiencing symptoms that might look like anxiety, but they're really bodily based. So that brings us to the second major topic, which was quote unquote false anxiety. And false anxiety is when someone is experiencing symptoms of anxiety, but really the root cause of this brain chatter is more of a lifestyle issue or balancing brain or blood sugar, because blood sugar can cause a lot of issues with how the brain handles mood and alterations in the neurotransmitters and hormones. And this definitely impacts how one feels. If they don't have enough glucose coming to the brain, you're going to feel anxious. So there's a difference between this false anxiety, which is struggling with anxiety symptoms related to mind-body imbalances, and true anxiety, which is an underlying brain health issue, again, with unique brain processing, cognitive patterns, and functional alterations. So now that we kind of have this catch up, let's go more into focusing specifically on health anxiety. So I want to go through the definition of what it is, some of the causes or proposed causes, because it still isn't fully elucidated what the causes are of health anxiety, risk factors, diagnosis, and treatment. And then I'm going to discuss, importantly, why I feel integrative medical care for brain health is the best approach. So sit tight, because I think this is very important with all that we're going through and the rise in mental health issues. If you're not affected yourself, I'm sure that this will be helpful to someone you care about, and feel free to share that and comment. And any other additional resources you want to provide, please do, so that we can all benefit and learn from each other and just support each other through all that's going on in the world today. Okay, so what is health anxiety? I'm going to give you a couple definitions. So Anxiety and Depression Association of America says the following about health anxiety: that there are two types. There's somatic symptom disorder and there's illness anxiety disorder. And this formerly known one was known as hypochondriac. Okay. Many people with health anxiety are often unable to function or enjoy life because they're fearful and preoccupied with their bodily symptoms. They obsess over things such as breathing, heartbeat, physical oddities, which could be skin blemishes or discomfort, headaches, stomach aches, indigestion, things such as that. They also might worry about a specific organ, their brain or their heart, or they think that they have a disease that they heard about on the news, which kind of is common today. They are preoccupied with the belief that they have or are in danger of contracting a serious illness. And many will pursue doctor tests and repeatedly ask for reassurance and keep going back to the doctor. And they'll have, here's the important distinguishing factor. They continue to search regardless of when everything is normal. They can't let it go and go back on their normal functioning after they've kind of got relief. They're constantly searching to the point where they aren't able to function. And they usually don't get mental health help because they believe it's medically based. So this goes beyond a normal concern for one's health. It really has the potential to impact someone's quality of life, even their work or their academic setting, even functioning on a daily basis, even their relationships can get affected. So let's just summarize that together. So health anxiety is when one is so obsessed with their bodily symptoms that their life becomes pursuing what is wrong with them and not about living. And no amount of assurance that everything is normal, even if they have a clean bill of health, relieves them from these preoccupations without professional help. So that's health anxiety. So what are some of the causes of health anxiety? And if we think of people that might constantly be worried about their health, just think of if some of this might apply to them, if maybe they might need additional support. And we also want to just educate ourselves on some of the underlying causes so that we have an understanding of what they're dealing with. And a lot of people with mental health issues are dealing with stigma, that it's a willpower issue. Well, think about your brain as an organ system that also needs different nutrients and nourishment, and it has an electrical, chemical, and neurotransmitter and biochemical signaling patterns. And if these aren't optimally functioning, just like any other organ system, it means that the person's going to be off balance and they need to support their brain health, whether that be hopefully through both conventional treatment and integrative treatment, so that they're getting cognitive support as well as mental health support as well as brain health support. Okay, so a 2017 article entitled "The Treatment of Anxiety Disorder" did discuss some of the causes of anxiety, and they felt that it was an interaction of psychosocial factors. So we're talking about childhood adversity, stress, trauma, and genetic vulnerability. And this manifests in the neurobiological as well as the neuropsychological dysfunctions that someone with anxiety has. So remember, this is proven in neuroimaging studies that there are differences in neurochemical and neurophysiology patterns in the brain, and this affects neurocognition, okay? So although they haven't been able to pin down the specific genetics, they have been able to see certain correlations in studies. So again, we want to really consider this as a brain health as well as a cognitive patterning issue related to brain health issues, so we can really help people get the proper support that they need and decrease the stigma. Now, some potential contributors to health anxiety, so those were potential causes, right? These underlying brain health imbalances. What can contribute to kind of ignite these imbalances, as well as when someone has a genetic vulnerability? Well, someone's beliefs, right? So if they have a poor understanding, they think that any bodily symptom that they have is a sign of major cause for concern, and they get into this vicious cycle of reinforcing and seeking the evidence that this symptom happens. Like, say it's normal to have gas once in a while or to burp once in a while, but they're being hyper focused on it and constantly looking for evidence that it's there. That can stress out the body and kind of create this vicious cycle. and make somebody pursue medical attention. It can also run in families. So if someone has seen their family constantly worry about their health, or has their family constantly worry about their health, that creates an underlying reinforcement neural patterning in the brain as well. And then finally, past experiences or traumas that make one frightened of future events if they had something that they didn't fully heal from or recover from a health issue, that can lead to this health anxiety where their brain just is preset in trauma and looking constantly for what's wrong. Okay, so we talked about some of the underlying causes. These are some of the contributors. What about risk factors? So if we have these contributors, these causes, and then things that can actually make one more vulnerable, a stressful event or situation. So we talked about a past experience, the possibility that you have a serious illness and then it turns out not to be serious can make someone kind of more on point. Child abuse or being abused as a child, these people are more predispositioned to anxiety disorders. Having had a serious illness as a child or watching a parent who had one, having underlying just kind of more of a nervous system that's more sensitive can tend to be more at risk. And then internet addiction, Dr. Googling the heck out of everything, can actually set someone up that's actually listed as a risk factor on both Medscape or both on MedPage as well as Healthline as a risk factor for health anxiety. So be careful with Dr. Google, okay? So overall, it's a pretty complicated issue, and I tried to find some of the most current evidence because I was looking for some genetic links. And again, it's kind of skewed a little bit, but there was a 2021 review article and explored the risks associated with stress, anxiety, and depression in undergraduate students from all various countries. So it led to this whole hodgepodge of interacting aspects with this really cool diagram that I do have a link to on my article, but it boiled it down to several categories: psychological risk factors, academic risk factors, someone stressed about, tests and it just gets overwhelming, biological factors, which we talked about, social factors, lack of social support or not feeling supported can really increase anxiety levels, lifestyle factors, talked about that kind of with anxiety symptoms and false anxiety, then economic stress, financial concerns. All of these can lead to someone maybe experiencing brain health issues that can lead to the patterns of anxiety or health anxiety. So those are the risk factors, the diagnosis, the contributors, or now we're going to look at the diagnosis. These are the contributors, the causes, and the risk factors, okay? So diagnosis is actually often one of exclusion, and many people will get this diagnosis after a long time and many years chasing symptoms because, again, they're looking and thinking that they're being responsible to find a biologically based disorder, and it's really not even there. So it's usually made after an astute physician who's aware of this condition performs a physical exam again, and it's thoroughly cleared and ruled out. At that point, if nothing is found, they will probably refer this person to a mental health care provider. So do you see why I think it's really important to understand this? Because a lot of time it goes missed and people will really suffer. And it is actually a brain health issue that needs attention. How do they treat it? So if someone gets diagnosed, there's medications that can be used. There's also different forms of psychotherapy. I have a preference for CBT or cognitive behavioral technique. It's one of the most common for anxiety disorders, and it has many advantages because it helps the body with the cognitive distortions. So it helps somebody understand what their health anxiety and worries and beliefs are and learn how to look at their body sensations and just kind of observe those without having these unhelpful, harmful thoughts. It raises awareness on how to better cope with things such as anxiety, stress. It helps people avoid overly examining their body for signs and symptoms and helps them regain some control over their life. So I would highly recommend talking to a professional mental health expert, and they can lead you to the best treatment for you. Again, most likely it's probably going to be cognitive behavioral therapy. And I also feel that along with addressing the cognitive distortions and mindsets that trigger these compulsions and ruminations with psychotherapy or CBT, I think it's important vital actually, to account for all of the brain factors. And I listed those in the second video or the second article on false anxiety. We're looking for things like hormonal imbalance, nutrient imbalances, lifestyle factors, genetic predispositions, inflammation. We're looking for stress. We're looking for how somebody processes their neurotransmitters. All of these things is going to modulate their neurochemistry, their neurobiology, and make these cognitive processing patterns that are being addressed by therapy even more effective. Okay, so this is because you don't want the biology to override the psychology or vice versa. So when the two combined, they can complement each other and reinforce these new neural pathways. I've actually seen this in my practice where nutritional support, essential oils, and brain nourishing foods can make these transitions and cognitive shifts a lot easier and more comfortable for the individual. So why not get all the tools in the toolkit as possible? So I have so many free articles on my website and these videos for you guys so that you can access some complementary care if your doctor is open to it. I think it will be very helpful. And I strongly, okay, so here's kind of my soapbox I'm going to get on about the importance of a holistic approach to anxiety and to mental health support in general. You cannot separate the mind from the body. I don't think that we can continue to just look at mental health issue as a psychological or cognitive issue. We have to focus on brain health. We have to focus on what the brain needs to be restored to help it with these neurochemistry and biological processing patterns. So naturopathic doctors, I feel, are great mediators for change in this. Functional medicine doctors, combos of naturopathic and functional medicine doctors, all of this is integrative. So I also, in the article that goes with this video, there will be a resource for you on a podcast on health anxiety. And this is more of a conventional treatment approach, but just so you have an idea, I just wanted to get this out for you. It goes through somebody that has had health anxiety and how she treated it with psychological and professional help, and tips for managing fears in a step-by-step approach for overcoming health anxiety. So give that a listen. Keep in mind that that's what I feel is one amazing, important, vital piece to get that professional mental health. And then let's also think about how we can best start supporting mental health in a more comprehensive way. And this includes a biochemical, functional, cognitive, emotional, spiritual, and mental way, right? We're bridging those all together. So now we have an idea of the importance of proper diagnosis. We've looked at anxiety in general, brain patterns. We've looked at false anxiety, just given you a crash course in health anxiety that I hope that you share. And I really do urge all those who are struggling with any form of mental health issue with health anxiety to get the professional mental help that you need. And remember that this knowledge of these underlying issues with the brain, just like as we know what happens with the pathology of cardiovascular disease, right? It'll end stigma for some of these mental health disorders, and we'll start to see brain health is mental health and vice versa. And it can lead to better brain care and more comprehensive treatment later on. So let's get the word out. Please do share this video with all those that you think would benefit. In my opinion, mostly everyone. And I don't want people to suffer alone. Reach out. If you need more resources from me, if you want to see how I can support you, please feel free to reach out to me. Check out the free resources in the description below. And I also offer courses for both professionals as well as for consumers on using essential oils for mind-body balance. They're one of my favorite tools, and they integrate a lot of the physical, the emotional, the spiritual, all of those aspects into one tool. Not the sole answer, but a very important tool, I think, for all of us. All right. So I had a great time talking with you all. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you all again very soon. Take great care.